and I appreciated his questions because we need the dialogue so that and people, the public, can kind of hear and listen to what we're talking about and what's going on. But there was a comparison made on how much the dollars had increased since the beginning of the current referendum, and understandably this gets confusing because our upcoming referendum is voted on in 2023, and the current referendum was voted on in 2017, but it became effective in 2018. And so one of the things I know has happened is that so the first year of the referendum was actually 18, not 17, and the 17, that first referendum was 16 cents, and it was raised to 19 cents. And so, of course, and again, that was approved at a 70% rate. So I just wanted to start by presenting a bit about the referendum. And so the first thing you'll see here is that this is the dollar amount and the percentage increase from one year to the next. And I'd emphasize again that this reflects inflation on property, homes and businesses alike, but it also reflects growth. And so it's not, so the growth adds, something to that. And as we're all aware, this was pretty stable until 2023, and then it for most people it went up, noticeably. And so I wanted to point that out, and if I can, I'm not sure if I can you have to do it or I have to do it? Okay, so the next thing I would want to, I mentioned this earlier, but I want to talk a little bit about the referendum rate, because that's really where we are asking for you to raise your taxes beyond the state cap of that 1% if you're for a homestead. And so as you can see here, our rate for both of our referendums, it totals 24 cents, and then you see our contiguous neighbors and other Hamilton County, and also you can see the total school tax rate. And so we're fortunate that we are the lowest in Hamilton County on both the referendum rate, which again I've emphasized the importance of and the difference between that and just the rate, the total tax rate, as well as we're noticeably lower on the total tax rate. Now we can go to the next one. So here then is some detail on that referendum. As I said earlier, we have an operating referendum at 19 cents, and we're the only school district in the state that has a specific, we were the first to adopt that, and I think so far the only one, to have a referendum specific for safety. And that's how we get to the 24 cents. And you'll see the others do not have the safety we all have operating referendums. And that may seem, because pretty much every district around us has an operating referendum. The fact is that we're not typical in Hamilton County, as you all know. There's about 55 operating referendums, and there's over 300 traditional public school districts. So it's it's typical around here, but it's not typical outside of here. And so so we all have operating referendums, and that doesn't show here, but Zionsville does as well. But so all of us, our contiguous neighbors, also have those. But they also have facility referendums, and all of them have facility referendums. And as I commented earlier, we've very specifically chosen not to recommend a referendum for our facility projects. And so and then you see the percentage difference. Again, I got to say it one more time, because this can sound like we're being critical of our neighbors, and that's not what I'm intending. Everybody has their own set of circumstances, but we're very fortunate to be able to have the tax rates that we have, and to maintain our facilities the way we do, and still do it in a comparatively affordable situation as when it comes to tax dollars. And so you can see that as well. Now I think we may have, do we have one more? Yeah. Well, these are just some comments that I reiterate that we don't raise the tax rate, but we also keep this. We don't put it on the ballot, so that we purposely are not asking taxpayers to allow us to tax beyond the state cap. So I just want to give that before, and now I'll give the, the monthly financial report. Find it. So this is June 30th, so that's more significant than, other months in that for us, this is the year end, our fiscal year end. And so I'll begin again with the 23 education referendum and rainy day fund, and we're right on where we we've projected all along that we would be. We've grown slightly from last year, very slightly, but we need to, because we look at our cash balance. I'm talking about cash balance. We want to, because we need to, because as the budget goes up, then the percentage goes up, and our goal is to have a minimum of 8%, and we're moving toward also an upper end of about 12%. And so when I go to the next, so you see 22 June ending, we were at 10.6 million. So that's, we also have a little more money in the rainy day fund this year as compared to last. So when you net that out, and you're talking about, $146 million, we're up about a net of about 438,000, which ticks that percentage up a little from what it was last year. But we're also just shy of the 8% minimum, but we're moving. We intend to move in the direction of getting first to the 8%, but also we really want to grow that a bit. And I've talked about that before. With when we sell bonds, Standard & Poor's would prefer us to have a little more cash reserve than we have. Then in the operating fund, we ended there with a cash balance of $7 million this year, and last year we had 6.4 almost. So these aren't as comparable because it's not primarily salaries and benefits, but we still do make that comparison. And then finally, the rainy day fund, we currently have 2.2 million in that fund, and you can see that for the most part that money just it becomes a part of our cash balance. It's not really an active fund per se, particularly this past year. And then last year it was a little bit less than that, I think about $100 and some thousand. It was almost 2.4 million. So with that, I'll respond to any questions that you might have.
Questions? Okay. Yep.
Quick one. But this is probably a timing issue. But again, I noticed the property tax revenue in May was considerably higher than what we got in June. Is that just the way it's flowing in from?
It is, and I think I did point that out maybe a month ago, because that matters when you're comparing May this year to May last year. As you have noticed, we received, we call it early draws, and so we received those early tax draws at a higher percentage of the total this May, I'm sorry, as compared to a year ago, and so that's good for us. Because we want money that's intended for us as soon as we can get it, and particularly in this area where we're paying salaries every 2 weeks, and as you know, from January to June, the cash goes down because we're not getting property tax dollars only, but roughly twice a year, but we do start getting it in May, and then the rest of it in June. So you're correct. It's up. I think it's up about 6%, or it was in May, and so that kind of, from comparing one year to the next, if you didn't understand that, it would kind of distort your conclusion on where we're at financially. And you'll see the same thing at the end of the year in November and then December.
All right. Thank you, Mr. McMichael.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to our legislative update. Ms. Williams.
Thank you, everyone. So I'm giving the legislative update. At the end of the session, there were many bills that passed. We're lucky here in Carmel because we serve as our administration. Dr. Beresford serves as a resource for our legislators. As he mentioned earlier, sometimes bills have unintended consequences, and so our legislators look to him and people like him because of their vast experience to as they craft their bills. There were many different bills that were passed, and I'm going to highlight some of them. So HEA 1558 passed this year, and it's called the Science of Reading Bill. And the aim of this bill is to help increase and meet our state's goal to reach a 95 reading proficiency in the state of Indiana by 2027. This bill has provisions to define the 5 essential program components, program guidelines for curriculum in higher education. So what it's saying is that as people are being trained to be educators, they will need to have certain education. They'll have to be able to be proficient in the science of reading. And so it provides for the education that they'll need to obtain. And they'll be able to get this literacy endorsement as teachers. And then it also provides for current educators to also receive that endorsement, which will then have implications for their pay scale. HEA 1590 provides a funding mechanism for universal dyslexia screening, which was previously mandated but went unfunded. Again, at CCS, we've done extensive work on early literacy to address dyslexia screening. Hopefully, this funding will cover our expenses. So we've already been doing this internally, but this funding mechanism will allow us to receive funding from the state. There's several bills that are prioritizing STEM education. So science, technology, English, engineering and math. Sorry, I knew I would forget that. HEA 1382 talks about robotics programming, which will fund, this bill will fund robotics initiatives to promote science, engineering, math, and technology learning. We have a very vast and energized robotics programming, but this will provide further funding for it. It has competitive grants for the school districts to seek funding for students. So we've been so lucky in Carmel, but other districts have lagged behind and not had the funding or the programming, and so this will help those kiddos. HE 1590, computer science funding for programming, establishes competitive grants for districts to seek funding for professional development for teachers in the area of computer science. The Indiana Department of Education is required to publish a list of curricular materials that are deemed to be high quality in the area of STEM. Then there's some laws that talk about the textbooks and curricular materials. HEA 1001 prohibits schools from charging families for textbooks. The state allocated $160 million to pay for those costs. School districts may still charge families for materials and school supplies. So in Carmel, we pay in a little bit, and then the school purchases the supplies we need. But the textbooks will be funded through these funding mechanisms. HEA 102 provides new guidelines for graduation requirements, continuing the expansion of work-based learning, and we've talked a lot about that in the district, about these hands-on programming for our students who maybe see a little bit different track for their future. This past year, CCS has greatly expanded, and Dr. Dudley has talked about this, our work-based learning opportunities, and we'll see more growth through the coming year. On school accountability standards, HEA 1591 requires the Indiana Department of Education to develop a report card for schools that will be posted on our school websites, and this should be done by October of this year. HEA 1635 addresses new caps on the percentage of graduation waivers, and this change will begin in 2024. HEA 1001 changes the funding mechanism for the English learners And it changed it from a grant vehicle to a monthly distribution that will help in funding and having a continuous level of funding throughout the year. So we will continue to monitor how these bills and other bills, there's all of these, that went into effect, and we'll continue to monitor them and update everyone. But our team, front and back, have been busy implementing strategies, new technologies, so that we can address the bills that the state of Indiana sets forth, because our job here is just to make sure that we do what the state tells us to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jenny.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah, go
This,
for it.
I didn't hear you mention 1447, I think it is, and one of the elements is library materials.
Okay.
Do you have an update on that?
I don't have an update on that, but I can certainly look into it and get up to speed on it, and then give you some
Yeah,
information
it's
on it.
just one, I think I had mentioned it in some correspondence that I think we'll need to look at some policies and maybe have to put some changes in.
Well, certainly, as being on the policy committee, if something is brought forth that needs to be looked at, Dr. Dudley will bring it forward, and then we will bring it forward for a vote.
Well, just to clarify, we don't have a policy committee anymore, but we do.
Right, not the
yeah,
committee,
right. Greg, can you give us an overview? Do you remember what the last?
It gets into age-appropriate materials in libraries, and so I
I'm
think
just
it's
trying to jog my memory. I didn't remember if this is the one about. I feel like there might have been one about libraries, public libraries that were outside of schools, but you're
school
saying this one
libraries.
is the school libraries.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can chip in a little bit there. So we do have a library book challenge procedure here. So we're having Church Hill and Antrim, our legal counsel, evaluate our challenge, our policies and procedures on that challenge piece, and make sure that we're in compliance with Indiana law. A lot of the bills that Jennifer mentioned were passed, and they actually are now HEA, House Enrolled Acts, and are law. But unfortunately, a lot of the laws were written in such a way that a lot of the detail of what we need to actually do isn't in it. So we have to rely on our lawyers to try to figure that out. And this year was particularly difficult because a lot of our legal counsel were going, we're not really quite sure how this is supposed to play out. So we're getting more and more information, like from the Indiana Department of Education, and clarifications and pieces. So we'll be putting that together. And then if we do need tweaks, we'll be communicating that. Dr. Dudley will be communicating that to you, and then we'll make any tweaks in our policies and procedures that we need to. Thank you.
Dr. Beresford, was there any specific ambiguities in the 1447 bill?
I'd have to have it right in front of me to read through the language to be able to answer that question, but it's a matter of what the process and procedure is going to be and who can be involved and what the timing of it is. So there are some ambiguities as to when, how fast the process has to go and how direct, what the steps are that you take to do a challenge. So we have to see if our steps are in line with that, or if we may have to tweak our steps.
I think I believe it's more than just a challenge process. And I think I remember seeing the ISBA had a kind of a model policy on how that might work. But I think it also gets into the materials themselves, of what materials need to be filtered out of the libraries that might be considered age inappropriate or obscene, those kinds of things. So there's a lot more to that bill too. I believe there's surveys, privacy on surveys.
Well, I'll certainly look into it as the liaison and get back to you on that.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, one of the great things is that we have lots of support with ISBA and our council, so that all of these new laws that come forth are all, we dive into them and like make sure that we're following those standards. So, thanks for questions. Is that it, Jenny? Oh, that's it for me. Okay. Carmel Parks.
I will be brief. Just wanted to give an update on the Chinese garden. It is in the planning stages, and the Parks Department, at the time of our last meeting, was just waiting on the budget information from the city of Carmel.
Thank you. All right. Superintendent's report.
I've got about an 11-page report tonight.
Don't even play.
Well, that was inappropriate. No, it's really been a wonderful night. I tell you, it's always nice to have the PMR full and just to celebrate those students who performed at such a high level. And there was a lot more drama in some of those competitions than was described. But it has been an amazing. That kind of brings an end to our celebration of spring athletics was today. And Archit and Amaga, the students that are our presidential scholars, I've gotten the opportunity just to hang out with them a little bit, and probably Archit more because he was on the superintendent's principal's advisory committee. But those kids are better people than they are students, and you know how fantastic they are, what kind of students they are, but they are just outstanding human beings. And if you ever get worried about what the future is going to be like, it's going to be fine, as long as the Archits and the Amagas are going to be running the show. Also appreciate all that information tonight, and just a reminder, just to everyone in the community, just to keep it simple, is that if you looked at the far right column, that was the rate of taxes, and we don't raise that up any. It stays, and you can see as the years go by, you get to the bottom, it starts getting lower. And that's when we start fixing other stuff. So that's how we're able to do that. And really well done explanation of the tax caps, because a lot of folks don't understand how that protects the tax rate, and it can't go higher. So that was really, really good. I know it was long, but that's really important stuff, and hopefully you've got all the information you need as a board to consider those improvements. We're always working off of things, and you've probably heard me say 1989, 1988, 1990, 1991 a lot, because it's the last time those things were touched. And you're hearing every one of these presentations talks about how many students we served at that time, and now we're like almost double that now. So obviously the space needs are real. But my report is really about the countdown, because the countdown has begun. We are T-minus 13 days before the first day of school. And I was at the opening day bus driver meeting this morning, and several drivers came and said, "Dr. B, are you ready?" And I said, "Absolutely not. But we have 2 weeks, and we're going to be ready when the bell rings on that first day." Next week, we're going to see food service come in. We'll have the opening day for food service. Teachers will be back next week, Thursday and Friday, and then it'll be showtime. So really excited about that. I do want to send out a message to all of our parents to be on the lookout for important back-to-school information. They'll be coming your way. This is a great time to make sure that all your contact information is correct in PowerSchool and Canvas. I can't stress that enough. You may have changed a phone number. You may have changed an address. Look through all of your students' information and make sure it's correct and accurate. Some of that you'll be able to change on your own because you have that access to it. Others you might have to contact the school and say, "Hey, I need you to fix something." But we want all information to be correct in PowerSchool and Canvas before school year starts. Now, as you can guess, it's a busy time of the year, so you got to watch out, and there'll be plenty of dates to save. I would say, just for a few of them, is bus information will be coming out. They're going to have, the drivers are going to be running their routes, practicing, and then they'll give the final input to transportation, and those will be finalized and posted. If you want to put money in your kid's lunch account, it's a great idea to get ahead of that and jump on that. There are ice cream socials going on. There'll be, kindergarten meet and greets. There'll be all kinds of things scheduled. With a lot of important things going on. For Carmel High School families, Welcome Week kicks off on Monday, and that's for parents and students. And parents are highly encouraged to attend one or more of the sessions during the week. They have sessions for parents. There are wonderful opportunities for everyone to get to know the building, learn more about what it's like to be a Greyhound, and how we all work together to help students succeed. School resource officers are going to be doing some work there too. They're hosting some helpful sessions. And the Carmel High School leadership will be on hand throughout the week to answer questions as well. So Welcome Week is starting on Monday. Now, for our new Greyhounds, Wednesday, August the 2nd, is the Greyhound Kickoff Program for incoming freshmen. So registration includes a full day of activities. We encourage all freshmen to take advantage of this, to try to make it. There's a registration fee that covers a T-shirt, lunch, and some programming, but if money is an issue, please contact or call or check out the CHS website to inquire about financial assistance. We've got you. I don't want any freshman not to attend the freshman kickoff because of money. We will make it work for you. So all you gotta do is let us know. And but that is really a great program. It's a mentor-based program where the older students will lead our new Greyhounds through activities that will greatly help their transition to high school. And it's a great way to familiarize, for kids, I always say for you freshmen, it's a great way to familiarize yourself with the building. So you get in the building when it doesn't have as many people in it. And so you kind of get used to get your route, figured out. You can practice your class schedule. You can meet some teachers, meet some administrators, and of course you'll see your old friends and you get a chance to make some new ones. So always a great time, and really encourage folks to do that. And that concludes my report. We are fired up, and the countdown has begun. I can't wait to get the 23-24 school year started. Thank you.
Thank you. And I can't find what paper tells me when our future meetings are, but you can check online to see the future dates, because I think I'm late and I'm ready to go to bed. So with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.